Welcome to Badminton Unlimited, your weekly access to badminton action and beyond. This week we're in Denmark to report on how the country's badminton administrators are finding ways to keep their shuttlers at the top table of the sport. And we catch up with India's Kashyap Parupalli, who is trying to get back to his former highs. There's a story told about the development of badminton that sums up Denmark's relationship with the sport. A group of Irish shuttlers visited the country to teach the Danes how to play the game. Upon arriving at immigration, they were refused entry because the customs officers had never seen a shuttlecock. The Irish players had to demonstrate its use for the officers. The team from Ireland was not only let through customs, but the officers are said to have spent hours playing the game. It's this almost mythical association with the sport that makes badminton so special to the country.
Badminton has always been a big sport in Denmark. Denmark was part of the founding members of international badminton. And one of the reasons for that is in the past and quite early, the weather forced us to think of indoor sports. And we also had a quite wealthy society, so a town of 1,200 inhabitants could produce a hall with 5 badminton courts and a handball field inside.
Badminton is definitely amongst the national sports here in Denmark. It's a sport that is understood, played by almost everyone, and there's a lot of engagement all from the players themselves, where there's a lot of people playing on a daily or weekly basis, but there's also a lot of parents and other people that are engaging in the sport as volunteers or in other ways.
So it wasn't too much of a surprise when the BWF World Championships made its 4th visit to the Danish capital. After all, Copenhagen is the epicenter of European badminton. It houses some of the best players in the world, has a knowledgeable and appreciative fan base, and enthusiastic volunteers. But upon closer inspection, there is a realization that Denmark needs this global tournament as much as the event wants them.
I think it's hugely important for the sport, and in particular in Denmark, because badminton is it's one of the 3 biggest sports in the country, but we are seeing a situation where we're losing members, and obviously it's a major boost for the sport as such in the country.
But the challenges facing the sport in Denmark isn't restricted to popularity on home soil. It also has to do with the worldwide progress of badminton. Ever since the sport developed from being just a fitness or recreation game to being a high-performance sport in Denmark, the country has been very successful at producing results. Badminton Denmark has developed world-class players who have gone on to win multiple All-England championships and other international titles. But as the sport has grown, the nation's influence on the global stage has waned.
When the All-England was considered being the world champs, we had won loads of titles. We won half of the titles to the beginning of the 60s. So we are producing world-class players, but it's getting harder and harder because badminton has also developed from being what can you call a kind of local contest to being a worldwide sport, especially with the very population-heavy nations like China and India and Malaysia and Indonesia going into the sports.
With a population of just over 5.5 million, Denmark has always used its expertise and badminton know-how to counter the advantages that larger countries have had. But even that has been eroded as coaching levels have increased throughout the globe. Denmark also has another weapon in its arsenal: the famed club system. The country has over 400 clubs competing regularly in tournaments and helping to develop players.
The Danish league and club system is the main reason why Denmark is a bit ahead of the rest of Europe, because the system has been in place for so many years, and it gives all the Danish players, not only junior players, but also when you make this transition from junior to senior, it gives them a place where they can still be competitive.
The system has been the backbone of badminton in the country, allowing its shuttlers to experience at close hand the cut and thrust of competition. but it has had to adapt to meet modern demands. Since the 90s, Badminton Denmark has established national training centres and development programmes for players. It is now trying to work with the clubs to implement these structures.
What we're looking to do now is to create a better cooperation and working together between the clubs and the talent centres and getting the knowledge about what is necessary to compete internationally out in the clubs. Because what I think has happened over the recent years is that the international level of competition has grown and the level of training in the clubs have not been able to follow that.
The association has also looked abroad to help keep up with the changing nature of the sport. In the 90s, they brought in some Chinese coaches to teach players. Danish coaches have gone abroad to learn and have been proactive in gaining knowledge.
We are spending a lot of our attention on what are the other doing and try to take the best. And because we have the story we have, we are quite confident in Denmark that basically we are doing all right. So we are trying to kind of supplement to our training, not revolutions.
Having the foresight to notice the shifting sands of international badminton, the association has been able to maintain its status as the most successful nation in Europe and has helped it keep in touch with the rest of the world. But they know they must continue to be vigilant if they are not to get left behind.
My favorite badminton venue is the first Yoyogi Stadium, Japan Open. Favorite movie is Braveheart. My favorite food is seafood. Best birthday gift, it'll be a Mont Blanc pen. Definitely, I think Lingdan. Best advice given to me, definitely from my parents, of course. They always support me. They always tell me not to give up, even though you might be down. You have to bounce back even stronger.
When we get back, we catch up with former high achiever Kashyap Parupalli as he attempts to get back to his glory days. This is Kashyap Parupalli, one of India's top men's singles players. It's been a rollercoaster ride for the 28-year-old these past 12 months. From the high of being world number 6 last season, injuries have since hindered his progress. Badminton Unlimited caught up with the Indian ace for a heart-to-heart about his rise to the top, his struggles with injuries, and the challenges he faces to stay on top of the game. Parupalli's first real taste of success on the global scene came at the 2010 Commonwealth Games, where he was a bronze medalist. With the event held in New Delhi, it was the first time the then 24-year-old experienced the pressures of meeting the expectations of a nation.
It was a very tough experience for me because we were playing in India, the whole crowd was backing us and we had to perform well, and so there was a lot of pressure, and I really describe it as a pressure cooker inside the stadium because I was very tense that we had to do well. It was a tough tournament, and I was happy and I felt lucky that I ended up with a medal at the end.
It was his performance 2 years later at the 2012 Olympics that saw the player grab the headlines in his country. Kashyap exceeded all expectations when he advanced into the last 8 of the competition. He put up an impressive fight against Malaysia's Lee Chong Wei before going down to the then world number 2. Though he narrowly missed out on a medal in London, he became the first Indian male shuttler to ever reach the men's singles quarterfinals at the Olympics. That success in England gave Parupalli the confidence to push on, and by the end of 2012, he clinched his first international title at the India Grand Prix Gold.
I had a lot of time to think about my game, and I improved a lot at the Olympics. I reached the quarterfinals, and then after that quarterfinal, it gave me a lot of confidence that, you know, I can be one of the top players in the world. I can be in the top 10, I can be in the top 5, and then it carried on, and so 2012 end, I won the Gold Grand Prix event. I was very confident by then. I was almost ranked, say 11 or 12 by then in the world, and so that helped me in that tournament, and you know, I was very happy. That was my first title.
Now the best shuttler in his country, Kashyap continued to stake his claim on the international scene. Though there were no more titles to follow, he regularly reached at least the last 8 at every tournament he played. With his aggressive style and trademark drop shots, Kashyap was a player to be reckoned with at every competition.
I started off really well. 2012 end, I won a tournament. 2013 All England, I reached the quarterfinals, and I reached the previous year's Olympics quarterfinal. And then I was feeling good about myself. I was continuously reaching the quarters or the semis of every tournament, Super Series or whatever tournament it is. And until like the World Championships, I was going okay. And then even in the World Championships, I lost by a point. I lost the medal by a point. In the quarterfinals, I was up 20 match point, 19 against Dupeng Yu of China, and I lost by a point. But I was really happy with my performance. Although I could not convert it into a medal, I was very happy.
That consistent run of good performances in the first half of 2013 saw Kashyap reach a career high of 6th in the world rankings. But his progress was dealt with a blow when he suffered a series of injuries. First, it was an ankle injury that kept him out of action for over a month. Then, a freak accident during training resulted in an eye injury that affected his vision. That also nearly took a month to recover. And just as he was getting back on track, Parupalli suffered a partial dislocation of the shoulder days before the national championships. But the desire to defend his title as India's best men's singles player saw him persist despite the injury. And his failure to keep his place as the #1 player at the tournament had an adverse effect on his mental state.
I had to play the national championships. I just wanted to give it my best shot. I tried strapping myself hard and giving my best shot, and I could not make it. I could not defend my title at the nationals, which upset me a lot, because although I was injured, I could not accept that, you know, I could not accept myself losing in the national championships, because I knew that I was better than everyone.
Kashyap's confidence took a big hit, and he struggled to find his form after that. The inconsistencies on court saw the shuttler spiral down the world rankings.
I was losing my confidence also, because with these injuries I was not fit. I was going to a tournament and I was playing as if I should see what happens and not like I want to win or I should go for it. I have nothing to lose, nothing like that. So I was losing my confidence, you know, losing matches which I should have won.
With the help of motivational coaches and the guidance of former All-England champion and national coach Pallela Gopachand, Kashyap is slowly rebuilding the self-belief he has lacked on court.
But that's the way it is for an athlete, I think. I've seen a lot of examples of these happening to players, and I've consulted a lot of mental trainers for this because I knew there was some issue with my confidence, and the only way is to fight and get back, and I'm a fighter.
And getting back on top was exactly what he did, and it came at the recently concluded Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. Parupalli became the first Indian male shuttler to win gold at the Games in 32 years, a feat only the legendary Prakash Padukone and the late Syed Modi have achieved in the past. But there's still more work to be done, as the shuttler failed to follow up from that gold medal winning performance. Kashyap fell at the first hurdle a few weeks later at the World Championships in Denmark.
And right now also my thinking is the same. I believe that I can beat anyone. I need to be consistent with that thought and that preparation throughout the year, which will make me in the top 5 or the top 10.
If Parupalli can keep his focus and repeat his Commonwealth Games performance, it will bode well for him and India at the upcoming Asian Games. He is targeting a podium finish at Incheon, and we wish him all the best in Korea. After the break, we find out about badminton in the Netherlands and signs that the country is turning round its fortunes. The Yonex Sunrise Indonesian Masters 2014 finals were dominated by players from the host nation. But they didn't have it all their own way as India prevented a clean sweep. The final day began with the women's doubles as Indonesia's Shendi Puspa Irawati and Vita Marisa took on compatriots Kesha Nurvita Hanadia and Devi Tika Permatasari. It was a tight first game as the pair traded blows, but it was Puspa and Marisa who eventually took it 23-21. The second game was a far more straightforward affair as they eased past their compatriots 21-13, claiming their second Grand Prix Gold title this year after winning the US Open Championships in July. The men's singles final followed. It was a matchup between the host's very own Firman Abdulkolik and India's HS Pranoy. It was Pranoy who came out blazing in the first game, winning 21-11. Despite a better performance in the second game by the Indonesian, Pranoy proved unstoppable. The fifth seed wrapped up the match and the title in 43 minutes with the final score 21-11, 22-20. Up next was the women's singles. Indonesia's Adrianti Ferdasari took on fellow teammate Ruseli Hartawan. This was a relatively straightforward affair as the third-seeded Adrianti dominated her compatriot. In a clinical display, she wrapped up the match in 33 minutes, winning 21-14, 21-14. Vita Marisa returned to the court to partner Muhammad Rijal in yet another all-Indonesian matchup against Ricky Widianto and Puspita Ricidili. In a hard-fought encounter between the top two seeds, it was Ricky and Puspita who got the better of the second seeds in straight games, winning 21-18, 21-19. The final match featured Indonesian pairing Gideon Marcus Fernaldi and Marcus Kido taking on Silvanus Gay and Kevin Sanjaya Sukamuljo in the men's doubles. A tight contest saw both pairs challenging point after point, with the spoils shared at one apiece after two games. The decider, however, belonged to Fernaldi and Kido, as they wrapped up the match 21-17, 20-22, 21-14, concluding another fantastic round of top-class badminton action. In the hierarchy of European badminton, it is nations such as Denmark and England that occupy the top tier. While there are signs that countries like Germany, France and Russia are making efforts to push into this top group, very few would mention the Netherlands as a potential powerhouse. But not so long ago, the Dutch were considered to be part of the Big Four of Europe. Badminton Unlimited made its way to the city of Arnhem to find out how Badminton Netherlands is trying to return the national side to those glory days. We start at the Papenal Sports Centre on the outskirts of the city. It is the country's national sports development centre and caters to over 300 athletes across all sports. It's here that the nation's best shuttlers train, study and live.
When I was about 15, I moved here to Papendal. Well, basically they gave me the opportunity to come here and play badminton every day, but also study.
Players who are thought to have the potential to excel in badminton are picked by the national selectors from clubs, schools, as well as national trials. These young hopefuls are then invited to the Papenal Sports Centre where the real work begins.
When you're a young player and there is opportunity to become a good player, youth need that. You see the opportunities to develop yourself, and I think it's very, very important for young people.
Badminton is a common sport amongst the Dutch, but it has always been regarded as a recreational sport, played on the streets, in the backyard, or during camping trips. All that began to change at the turn of the century, as two Netherlands national players began to make a name for themselves at the international level. Mia Audina and Joutje began to medal at major tournaments, helping to bring the sport into the limelight. Mia Audina's impressive haul included a silver medal in the Athens Olympics, bronze in the World Championships and All England in 2003 and 2006, and gold in the 2004 European Badminton Championships. She also helped the Dutch women's team to second place in the 2006 Uber Cup, losing only to China. Joutje made a mark mainly on the European circuit and was part of the winning squad in the 2006 European Women's Team Badminton Championships.
The challenge is to become back on the top of Europe. I think 6-7 years ago Denmark is the best in Europe. And after that, Germany, Holland, and the Netherlands and England. That's sometimes Germany, sometimes we, sometimes England. And nowadays we are not to the top 4.
Badminton Netherlands had been busy plotting a return to the top. They have brought in Danish coach Kim Nielsen to shake things up.
The first analysis I've made with them was of themselves, where I showed them if I was their opponent, how will I beat them? And then I showed them a lot of habit stroke. They play all the time. And then I told them, if you not can change this thing, then you will only be maybe number 30, 25 in the world, because the best player, they will play you there every time, and then they know where the next one will come.
After a rocky transition, the players began to see the benefits of the new training regime. The coaches and shuttlers are now in sync.
To change something, and you work the players out of the comfort zone, and it's never fun to go out of the comfort zone and then to feel a little afraid, complain. And I understand it's not easy for the players, but I try to help them as well I can. But it's necessary to move them out if they want to raise their goal.
The Dutch women's doubles pair, Yvonne Muskens and Selina Peek, who stormed onto the world scene by winning last year's Bitburger Open, is currently the world's number 12. Their steady climb to the top has given the country a much-needed boost in their quest to be at the 2016 Rio Olympics.
One of my aims is that on a short term, I'd like to have at least one player or one couple qualify for the Olympics in Rio 2016. Another aim is that in 2020 I would like to have qualify in more disciplines, you know, in every discipline, men's single, women's single, women's double, mixed doubles, but that's going to be hard work.
But things are not quite so rosy. Badminton Netherlands is also facing the financial strain due to the budget cut from the Dutch National Olympic Committee. That resulted in players travelling to overseas tournaments without any coaches, and shuttlers having to find their own means to fund tour competition. While the Federation is looking at ways to improve the situation, players are moving ahead with a positive outlook. Their main concern right now is to concentrate on improving their game.
We are now working with a budget, so what rank you have, world ranking, a budget is based on that, so you can go to tournaments. But I think it's all good and things are quite well now. There is some good communication between the board, the coaches, the NOC, NSF here in Holland, so I'm satisfied about that.
For the Dutch shuttlers, the barriers and obstacles they encounter only serve as a source of motivation to succeed. For Badminton Netherlands, they will not rest until the nation is back in the race and amongst Europe's elite. Before we go, let's find out what's happening on the international circuit in our Badminton Unlimited calendar. Next week on Badminton Unlimited, we spend some time with Danish shuttler Hans Christian Vittinghus. And we're in the Philippines to find out how badminton is developing. See you next week.